The Freedom Convoy ongoing in Ottawa, Ontario today, as well as the blockade of the border crossing in Coutts Alberta, are truly history in the making. Therefore, today on Don't Talk TV, I'm going to talk about these again. We'll look at some video footage and also talk a little bit about some legal context and the right to protest against laws that the government has passed that we disagree with. Hello, my name is Nicholas Wansbutter. I'm a lawyer in Stratford, Ontario, Canada, and welcome to Don't Talk TV. So today's the 2nd of February 2022. We're in day 5 of the Freedom Convoy protest at Parliament Hill in Ottawa, as well as the blockade of truckers blocking off the border crossing in Coutts, Alberta. Although I should add that my understanding is that at the border crossing, they're still letting trucks across, so there's no interruption of vital supplies like food and such getting into Alberta. Both of these protests are in response to the unprecedented infringements of the most basic and fundamental of rights that Canadians are supposed to enjoy, and historically have enjoyed well before the Charter even existed, but which were entrenched in the Charter. Again, I've been extremely busy, so this video might not be to the usual quality, but I have to talk about this. As I said, this is such a monumental and historical thing. And in my view, this is a battle for the very soul of our nation and for, again, those most basic of freedoms and rights. The right to visit family, the right to wear what you want, whether you're wearing a face covering or not, the right to work, the right to choose what goes into your body. I mean, that's something that once upon a time, the very Prime Minister who's pushing these things said that people in Canada have the right to decide what happens to their own body. I actually happen to agree with him on that, but that was the flashpoint of these protests, was the forcing of a vaccine mandate upon the trucking industry after it had already been forced on everyone. But the truckers, to their credit, unlike other professions, they banded together and they're fighting back. Now, I was commenting on how busy I am. I do want to mention that I'm planning on heading to Ottawa to join with the Freedom Convoy on the 11th, 12th, and 13th of February. I hope I'll be able to meet some viewers there. I'm hoping to be able to give a speech, and most importantly, I'm going to be filming as much as I can. I'll have my volunteer PR guy, Richard Mitchell, with me, and we'll be changing up the format of Don't Talk TV for that weekend. I'll be posting live streams, short videos, so stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, let's look a little bit more at what's going on. And I'm going to focus on Ottawa because I just don't know as much about what's going on in Alberta. In law, the facts are always hugely important to the determination of any case. So we have to be clear about the facts of what is happening there. Our Prime Minister has, in my view, blatantly lied to the media when he said that this is a tiny group, a fringe minority of people with unacceptable views, racists, intolerant people. I think in his press conference that he gave on Monday, he used the word intolerant and racist about a dozen times to describe who's on Parliament Hill and what they're doing. What's really happening is Canadians from all walks of life and all backgrounds are gathering in a peaceful and really a happy assembly. The videos I've seen, it's a big love-in. It's not a hate fest, it's a love-in. And as I said, they're fighting for the very soul of our country, and that's why they're there. And we're way past the point of dialogue. Some people are maybe complaining, oh, they're honking the horns, you can't hear. I mean, I was just listening on the radio, they're trying to interview some MPs, you could hear the horns in the background. You know, we should have a peaceful dialogue. Well, the thing is, there has been no dialogue whatsoever, no discussion, no allowance for dissenting viewpoints for 2 years. And the Prime Minister has said that he will not speak to the protesters. He will not negotiate. He will not talk to them. So there is no dialogue. That's not even something to talk about. All they can do is stay there and make things as disruptive as possible until change happens. This is what happens when there's a complete breakdown of the democratic system. This is the fallout of a monumental and utterly complete failure of leadership on all levels, from municipal to federal. So in that context, let's look at some law on freedom of assembly and the right to protest in Canada. And the natural question is, are these protests legal? So I'm looking first at the case of Bracken and Niagara Parks Police et al. It's a 2018 decision of the Ontario Court of Appeal. And as always, I'll have the citation and a link in the show description below. Paragraph 15 has the salient discussion of the constitutional protection of freedom of expression. The Court of Appeal says that a defining feature of a free society is the right to speak openly and publicly without fear of government censure. Freedom of expression is deeply ingrained in democratic, egalitarian cultures and reinforces all of the other fundamental freedoms. In Canada, it receives legal protection through common law, statute, and Section 2B of the Charter. And they quote a key decision from the Supreme Court saying that, quote, freedom of expression was entrenched in our Constitution and is guaranteed so as to ensure that everyone can manifest their thoughts, opinions, beliefs, indeed all expressions of the heart and mind, however unpopular, distasteful, or contrary to the mainstream. And I pause to note, that is something that has not been allowed anywhere, in any of the normal sources, not in mainstream media, not in government. So again, the Freedom Convoy is the only way to express these contrary beliefs. The Court of Appeal goes on to say that the Supreme Court cautioned against restricting protection to only those ideas that are warmly received by the public, citing the European Court of Human Rights. And then in paragraph 16, they state, freedom of expression is not boundless, however, and a properly functioning society must limit many types of expression for the common good. Discerning the line between reasonable and unreasonable limits on expression is, however, a perpetual challenge taken up initially by legislators and secondarily by courts on judicial review. And in considering where the court will place boundaries, paragraph 53 has some important discussion, and talking about government actions or laws that limit freedom of expression, states that, but if the provision limits expression as a side effect of the pursuit of some other purpose, so for example, if they go and arrest all the truckers to stop them honking their horns, then the claimant or defendant faces the additional hurdle of establishing that the expression subject to the limitation furthers one of the underlying goods advanced by protection of expression. 1. Enabling democratic discourse. 2. Facilitating truth-seeking. Or 3. Contributing to the integral self-fulfillment. In my view, the Freedom Convoy does all three of those things, and again, it's the only forum or venue in which that can really be done in the current milieu. Now, the next question is, well, what about the fact that they're breaking COVID laws? Quite honestly, it's impossible to keep up to date on what all the gathering limits are. It's always constantly changing, but in Ontario, I believe it may be 100 people as of right now. So in that regard, I would look at a recent Supreme Court of British Columbia decision, Baudouin and British Columbia, 2021 decision of the British Columbia Supreme Court, which is their Court of Appeal. This is a case argued by the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms. And just to skip to the bottom, we'll look at the conclusion where the justice rules on whether the COVID restrictions in British Columbia infringed the rights under sections 2C and D for assembly and association, essentially prohibiting demonstrations or protests. So it says, paragraph 249, Mr. Baudouin has persuaded me that his section 2C and D charter rights were infringed by the G&E orders that predated the February 10th, 2021, and that the infringement of those rights by those orders cannot be demonstrably justified in a free and democratic society, because in Baudouin, the justice actually went through a proper Oakes analysis. So the remedy was that Mr. Baudouin is entitled to a part of the declaration he seeks, pursuant to sections 24 sub 1 and 52 sub 1 of the Constitution Act 1982, I declare that orders made by Dr. Henry entitled Gatherings and Events are of no force and effect against Mr. Baudouin as they unjustifiably infringe his rights and freedoms with respect to public protests pursuant to sections 2C and D of the Charter. So on the strength of the Baudouin case, in my view, the Reopening Ontario Act that would technically make it illegal for these truckers to be gathering in numbers they are, and supporters, it's not just truckers, are of no force and effect because they clearly violate the Charter, they're wrong, and when and if a case gets to the Superior Court of Ontario or the Court of Appeal of Ontario, I believe there will be a similar decision to Baudouin invalidating those laws. So in my view, the Freedom Convoy protest on Parliament Hill is not only legal, but necessary, and it may well be the thing that saves our nation. again, I look forward to seeing people on Parliament Hill next week. Hopefully things are still going on, although the good way that if they're not going on is if the government does the right thing and cancels all vaccine mandates and all COVID provisions. That's happening in some provinces, or appears to be happening. They're, of course, claiming it has nothing to do with the Freedom Convoy. So I'd be glad if I don't go to Ottawa because that happens. But given the rhetoric of our Prime Minister that I alluded to earlier, and given the fact that the initial response of our government was to double down on vaccine mandates, with Transport Minister Algabra coming out and saying that not only are we not dropping the mandates, we're going to bring in more mandates. We're going to make it illegal to cross provincial borders without a vaccine passport for truckers. I don't see this ending soon, so I'm going to be there to support the truckers, to support you, and hopefully give a short speech talking about the things I speak of on this channel. So this video isn't legal advice. If you need legal advice, you can call another lawyer or myself. I have my phone number listed below. I can't list my 855 number anymore because we're having some technical problems with that, and that number may not be functioning. So you'll have to call my office number. If you have show topics you'd like to see me discuss, please send an email to the email address listed below, or leave a comment in the comments box. And if you found this video at all interesting, helpful, or informative, please like, share, and subscribe. Follow us on social media. Definitely subscribe if you want to get notifications of my live streaming and the extra content that I'll be offering when I'm on Parliament Hill.